So as we go on, for this interview, we'll be joined by Anushka Virahsawmy, Country Manager for Gender Lead. Hi. I'll let Jaya Malu, Local President of JCI City Plus, introduce her.
So as I was saying, this program was a interactive and face-to-face session with different communities across Mauritius, but given the actual confinement issue that we have, we are doing it online. And I am pleased to welcome Mrs. Anushka Virahsawmy, who is the Country Manager of Gender Links Mauritius. She has been working a lot in combating and sensitizing people about gender-based violence. And she is our guest speaker today. And I hope that each and every one of you will make the most of this session as we go along. Feel free to ask your questions, and we will try to answer it ASAP. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jaya, and thank you, Anushka, for joining us today. We are living in a period we've never seen before, and with this lockdown across the world, and this has really led to many changes in our habits and about how we live. And one of the many effects that we've seen is negative effects on some families. Many institutions, including the SADC and UN, have sounded the alarm on the rise of domestic violence. Actually, UN officials have said, I quote, confinement is fostering the tension and strain created by security, health, and money worries. So people are having problems, and it's really causing a lot of issues in the family. And many countries have seen an increase in the number of cases. France, for example, 30% increase. Brazil, 40% increase. But in Mauritius, we have you correct me if I'm wrong, Anushka, 158 cases of domestic violence reported between 30 March to 30 April, exactly. Which, as per these stats, is not an increase compared to previous periods. So one of the first things here is, can we actually rely on these statistics alone and be confident that in Mauritius we have not had any increase in domestic violence?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, thank you very much. I think that's a very important point to take into consideration. Firstly, I'd like to take a step back, okay, before I answer on the statistics. I'd like to get us to understand. It's the first time the world has known such a crisis in our generation. It's been a tough thing. I mean, we've been in confinement since the 18th of March, and it's a long time. And now we're talking about, you know, the lockdown's going to be finished in June, the 1st of June. Lockdown was equal to, and I'm saying was, equal to staying at home, be safe at home. And unfortunately, what happened is that so many of the décideurs of this country, so the leaders, the decision makers, did not actually think of staying at home would actually be a problem for some people. When we're looking at GBV, which is gender-based violence, and you're going to hear me say a lot of GBV, gender-based violence, it's very important to look at the statistics and understand what is actually happening in Mauritius. In any kind of, you know, when you're looking at cases happening in Mauritius, I mean, there are surveys have been, which has shown the prevalence of gender-based violence is 15 times higher than is reported at the Family Support Bureau. Rape is even 11 times higher than reported to the police. Sexual violence is 61 times higher than reported to the police. And there's 1 in 4 women experiencing violence as adults, and 1 in 2 men experiencing violence as a child. So those statistics already without talking of COVID-19, has had a huge impact on our population on Mauritius. Now, bringing COVID in the picture, people were not, and it's very sad to say, the population at large was not given adequate information to be able to manage the COVID in a violent situation. So many of the
So
women,
I guess it's like more difficult to get in touch. It's more difficult. I was saying it's more difficult to actually get in touch with authorities and NGOs, I guess, in this time of lockdown.
Well, I would not say it's more difficult. What I would say is that if there was a proper communication channel happening, if we could get information every evening, we've had communication happening on COVID. This being on the social media, people's been listening to it. We wanted to know the number of cases. But unfortunately, GBV was not the priority. So it's very important to understand, in a situation where we know that 1 in 4 women has known violence in this country, 1 in 4 women. So in any group of 4 women you have, there's going to be 1 of them who's known violence. So this is terrible when we're looking at figures like that. So it's important to understand that if the proper communication was given, the population would have known, what do we do in a time where I'm getting beaten in my house and my house is not a safe place anymore? Where do I go? How do I get out of it? I will ask the director. So I think there's a gap.
What was done actually? A delay. Yeah. I think there's a delay when I talk and when you actually receive the audio. I think that's a connection issue. We'll try to work this around. But what I was saying is, so I understand from what you're saying is there's not much that has been done, but what special measures has been put by authorities or maybe NGOs like GenderLink, and what's been the efficiency of what's been put in place? Okay.
What's important to understand, what GenderLinks did, I mean, as the director of GenderLinks and Safe Haven, because GenderLinks got a halfway home. So what we did, we've got an open line where we're doing counseling with people, because we've had about 20 people contacting us, and it's terrible when people contacting you and you don't have a safe place for them. So those people, we refer them back to the Ministry of Gender, who's got a hotline, the 139, which is a hotline. It's a 712 hotline that takes care of any kind of important issues concerning GBV. And those people, then after, we were not sure what was happening to them, because usually in a normal situation, those people would go to different shelters like Safe Haven, our shelter, or they would go to SOS Femmes, ou Passerelle, ou Chrysalide. So those are the 4 shelters for women in distress. So it's very, very important to understand that there was such a lack of communication that finally we didn't know. I mean, I was so blessed, and I will say blessed, that last week the Minister of Gender phoned me, and I said, oh gosh, that's such a nice surprise from her, telling me that they have a temporary shelter where they are actually placing people. I was so impressed and I was so happy to hear that, obviously, because our shelter is full. We can't take more people. And even if we didn't have, we had space, it's important to understand that if I had space, I wouldn't take people on board. Because I've got 22 people in that shelter at the moment as we speak. I've got 14 kids and I can't put them at risk, which is normal. I've got to protect them. So I can't take other people from outside to come in. So I was so happy when the minister said, oh, Anushka, it's important for you to know that. And I said, listen, great, you're telling me that. Please inform the public. Communicate. We need to know, people need to know that you're doing such a good job. Keeping it for yourself won't help. So apparently we're going to get some beautiful surprises on Monday. This is what she said. So I'm just hoping that, yes, we can get some more information and understand really what is happening. I mean, we're looking at the figures which you said. Indeed, I'm looking at that, but very cautiously thinking, are those new cases? Are those reported cases? The police said that. The ministries, this is only from the police, but how many cases have come through to the gender ministry under the 139 hotline? Because those are not all the figures together. Already, when we're looking at those figures, I get very worried. 1 month, so many cases, and you've seen there's only 29 of the perpetrators have been arrested. So what is actually happening?
Do we know how many people actually call the hotline?
No, we don't have those data. So those are the data I'm looking for. Those are the data I need today to be able to do a good analysis. Because right now, without any statistics, without any data, I can't do anything.
And how do you think this is going to go forward? I mean, we're getting out of lockdown in a couple of weeks. Hopefully, it's going to be happening. And we're already seeing that there's some economic crisis happening, you know, like with all these small businesses not being able to actually sell or work. And how do you think this upcoming economic crisis, actually we're already in there, how is it going to affect domestic violence? Surely people will be able to go out, but that's a new variable that's coming in.
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed a lot with the women entrepreneurs we've been guiding for the past 5 years. So we've been working with about 1,000 people, women who's known violence and who's, you know, come out of their situation. But in lots of those cases, what is happening is that those women, obviously, they've been like small entrepreneurs trying to get a living, selling, either doing the cakes or asha or those things, or also into mechanics, into electrics, and into all of those things. The big issue we're having today is that most of them can't work today. Those doing electrics and all of that are still, we know they're going to be fine. But those who need to sell their articles are not being able to sell it. Because COVID, what happened is that they had to stay at home. They couldn't get their raw material. They couldn't sell their product. So again, so it was like a second violence. And we've got to understand now when somebody is getting that kind of, there are four different forms of violence, as you probably all know. We're talking about emotional violence, about physical violence, about sexual violence, which is very important as well, and economic violence. So that economic violence is dead inside it right now. And when those people who's known violence go out of their house to get refuge in another house, or get refuge from the police, or to another shelter, or to the ministry, they are actually going through a different type of violence, because they need to get out of the comfort of their home to be able to get security. So this is one thing. Now, when they are not economically independent, right now they are not, because they are not working, they're not earning. They need to find money. So it's about begging very often. They need to beg others or go to families and ask for financial help to be able to go and get some money. And what we've seen with those different data we have is that they have been, instead of being empowered, is the reverse action that has happened. So they go back to a stage where they feel down, then there's lethargy that goes in, then there's also that moment of total downfall of the self-esteem, and they don't know where they go. They just, depression settles in, and there's been, I'm sure, and I haven't had the data again on mental health during COVID. And I can tell you, with my friends who are psychologists and all of that, they have said they've had lots and lots of people coming to them because mental health is part of it.
Well, we are hearing a lot of issues and problems that's related to domestic violence and the various type of violence that can actually happen. What are the good, maybe international practices or strategies that we can do? I understand also that there's a national action plan that has been initiated. Are there strategies, international strategies or actions that are being implemented in there? What's the status? Is it going out soon?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, you're mentioning the National Action Plan. The National Action Plan, I mean, Gender Links was one of the NGOs working on it as well, together with the government. And because we all, I mean, different NGOs, we like working together with the government because we need that kind of synergy to be able to get things happening. Importantly, to understand that this is where, from that National Action Plan, there's been different programs that came out. There's been the program from the Gender Ministry about going and entrepreneurship with the National Women Council. Okay, so they've done kind of a seed. They were giving seed funding and for the development of those women. There's been other programs like training in schools and lots of the university as well. There's been different actions that has happened. But one thing we need to, I don't want to paint the picture all black, because the picture is black enough. But we want to see where can we go to improve? What needs to be done so that we can actually improve to a situation like Norway, where, you know, I mean, there's no gender-based violence at all, where they're closing prisons because there's no prisoners. And so all of those things are very important to understand. Now, we can compare Mauritius to Norway. Mauritius, we are still very much of a patriarchal society, whether we want it or not. Some people have been arguing we are not, we are equal. I'm sorry, we are not equal yet. It will come, and I'm just very much hoping, having youngsters like you guys.
So how can we go there?
Yes, let me finish. I think it's very important having young people like you to be able to understand what really gender equality is all about, so that we can bring a change. Having a patriarchal society where laws, and we look at the parliament today, we can see there's no 50-50 in our parliament. You have less women going into politics, and we know that women and men together will be able to bring a change if we are listening, because it's a complementary thing, men and women. So it's very important to understand that only men writing policies for the country, for the republic, will not help. We have to have a pool of men and women to be able to bring change. So what do we need to do, like you're asking? Well, there's a lot of things that can be done. There's a lot of education that needs to be done, but a good monitoring and evaluation tool should be there. Just telling me that Yeah, there's a lot of training that is being done, but then it's only quantitative data. I'm not interested with quantitative data. I'm interested by qualitative data. How change has happened. We're talking about Norway. Norway's got a culture of nonviolence. Norway has that. Norwegian people or Scandinavian people in general have got that in their DNA. They don't need to think about it. They don't need to think of gender equality. It's just like that. Whereas we are still fighting to be equal. I'm still doing advocacy about it. I'm still looking at, yeah, I want more women in parliament. So we've still got a gap. And we need to bridge that gap. And it's not only me and people we always looking at and, you know, and looking and seeing the same faces all the time fighting about it. We need you guys. We need the young ones. Because I was having a conversation with your colleagues yesterday and I said, young people, you've got so much potential. And I think that relay baton needs to go to you now.
Thanks a lot for this kind of work, Anushka. I think this generation is trying the best to make things happen.
Exactly.
And as we continue to talk, we'll also take in some questions that are coming in. You know, we've got maybe like 10, 15 minutes left. And we have a question from Crescenta. Thank you, Crescenta, which is, I'm going to read it for everyone. What is your opinion of protection orders which appear to the public as being only a protection on paper, which kind of doesn't have any value? We've seen in 2020 where people have been violating protection orders. It doesn't really like kind of, maybe there's this feeling it's not useful, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Okay, what I'll do is answer about the protection order.
What's your view on that? How we can improve that?
Firstly, I think it's very important to understand protection order is something very important to have. Okay, we shouldn't rule it out saying that it's not working at all, it's rubbish, is whatever. No, it's something extremely important to have. I think we've worked a lot with the authorities. When I say we, it's genderlings. And as the, the director in Mauritius, it's very important for you to understand that when we're talking about the protection order, what happens? Somebody's known violence, they go to the police, they get an OB number. That OB number then is actually the number that will go in court, you know, when the magistrate is there, and they file, and there's a fast track now. So there's been improvement happening. But the big problem, so there are good things about it, but the big problem is that when a woman or a man, but in most cases they are women, would be asked either to go back in that house where the perpetrator is, where that violent person is, and they would be asked to stay there, but then a letter is sent to that perpetrator telling them that your spouse, your wife, your partner has got a protection order against you. So what happens then? If you're still in the same house, that perpetrator knows that you've been to court, so there's a police case that's been filed against you. What do? Of course you're angry. So I think the system itself, the way it's happening at the moment, needs changes. Now, what do? Do we always, that victim usually would be the one leaving the house with the kids? I see that otherwise. The victim and the kids should stay in the house. It's that perpetrator who should get out of there. So I think there are gaps in that system, and we are trying to find solutions today.
Makes sense.
Of course it does. Why am I in safe haven having so many women and their kids today? And I think I should be having those perpetrators in there. Because those women are knowing a different kind of form of violence because they have to leave their house because they were beaten up to go into a shelter with their kids. And those kids, when we send them to school, it's very important to understand. When we give the address and the teacher, oh, toi qui sorti dans shelter, oh, you're the one who's coming from a shelter. Those are the things the kids come to us. And of course, I mean, I would go to the school and give them a piece of my mind. But can you imagine the trauma on that kid? It's just not on. So this is the kind of lack of finesse that is happening in Mauritius.
So that would be another kind of violence also that happens to the kids. Of course it is. Actually.
Of course it is. It's a huge violence on those kids. Because then there's bullying, there's all sorts of things coming out of it. But when I say there's been, I mean, lots of people say, yes, those protection orders are not working. I say, yes, in so many cases they have been working, but in so many cases they haven't worked. And in cases they haven't worked, we really need to understand why. If we know that that dangerous partner, that person, that perpetrator is dangerous, that person should be locked, but not be there, you know, walking on the streets, so that that woman gets the security she deserves. And we've seen too many problems like that, so that, I mean, this is getting totally ridiculous, because, I mean, problem like that, we're not finding solution at the end. We shouldn't have people dying under protection order. It's just not on. Yeah, there are loops. Yeah, there are gaps. But there are things that are good as well.
I'd like to go to the next question as we are running a bit low on time. And I think it's a very good question from what we've discussed. Is what the root cause of this violence? You know, what do you think? What have you seen has been the root cause of increasing domestic violence or domestic violence itself, and how we can get more toward the Norway kind of.
Do you know, when you are in a patriarchal society and when there's a power game, okay, because male would be viewed as more powerful than women, because we are in that kind of society, that power game would work if the woman is trying their best to do something else and to work. So that power game starts coming up, and I think it boils down to that. There is no one answer. Every individual has their own story. Okay, it's very important to understand that. Like I said, I will never compare Mauritius and Norway, because we just can't compare. We would love to be like Norway. I would love to be able to say, I am 48 now, and I would love to say in 2 years' time, okay, fine, I'll do something else with my life. I don't need to do advocacy anymore because there's no more violence in this country. I would love to say that, but I know I probably have a few more years of advocacy to go on, with your helps as well. So it's important to understand that when we're looking at gender-based violence, we need to understand that it's a lot to do with a power game. And gender-based violence, violence in general, is not only something happening for people who are poor. Very important to understand. Even people who's got loads of money have known violence. or living in violent households. Be very careful about that. But those people will talk, or they will very rarely talk.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Anushka, for all this information that we've got today. We're getting close to the end of our webinar, and I think we've only scratched the surface.
We have indeed.
Probably people can get in touch with you later, or your team if they want to have more information. And great. That's great. And before we close down that session, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of 2020 JCI Mauritius National President, Franchet Emilia. Do you want to say some words, maybe?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me to this webinar. I would like to congratulate JCI City Plus for this interesting subject, which is very, very relevant at this moment in this time of lockdown. And thank you, Mrs. Sawmy, for this interesting information that you've been sharing. And I would like to mention also that you have been mentioning a few loopholes in the system, for example, of the protection order. And I think this is an opportunity, members of JCI City Plus and of JCI Mauritius as active citizens, that you can seize, because it means that you can work with the relevant authorities, join in the discussion, and be at the table to bring the change to the system. So this is, let's not see it just as an issue, see it as an opportunity where members can join hands to work together with other NGOs and change the system, because we have seen that this system is not appropriate in so many cases. We have so many women losing their lives under protection order. So let's work together and make it change, and not just say that it is not good, but it is not good, but we can come together and make it a better system. So thank you, everyone. Thank you all those who have attended the session. And let's hope that, I know Mrs. Sawmy mentioned that she still has a few years more to do advocacy, but let's work towards reducing this number of years that she has to do advocacy.
I'd love to. I'll stay on the beat.
Yeah, so that we can say, yes, we've done something very relevant to our community, and we have less women losing their lives in this society. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Mrs. Sawmy, and looking forward to see you soon.
Thank you, National President. It's a real pleasure to have you here today. And I would also like to recognize the presence of our Deputy National President and the Mrs. Mauritius Yashvina Nauji. We would like you to say a few words, because you have been working on the subject for quite a long time. You have even given us a video that you made. So it would be nice to hear a few words from you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Anushka, if you can just give us a few of your closing remarks, and I would like to thank you for this session. Personally, I really wanted to work with you. I know we have collaborated in the past, and I really wanted to have a session with JCI, and I hope this is not the only session that we will have. And I'm sure we will do much more in the future, post this COVID. So, floor is to you.
Thank you so much. I mean, I really appreciate being here with you, and it's very important to keep talking about that topic, but also bringing, concrete actions. And I would say that there's been a lot of work that has been done during decades. And it's not something new. We've been talking about gender-based violence for a long, long time. And yeah, we're seeing kind of very slow progress, but very slow. But what I would like to say is that any kind of work you guys decide to do, true, there's so much information that can be given to the ministry. There's so much information that you can get for yourself. There's so much work that can be done. Firstly, I would advise, do not duplicate work that others have done. Go and work together with those people so that there's a powerful impact, firstly. Secondly, if you want to get far and you need to analyze the work you're doing, have a good monitoring and evaluation tool. Extremely important, because if we can't evaluate how we've actually changed people's life, I mean, I can go and talk to thousands and thousands of people for 1 hour, but then if there's nothing at the back, nothing that is done afterwards, everything I've talked during that 1 hour would be water under the bridge. Very often, it's just like now. We're very excited. We've seen things. We've learned about new things. Very good. And then if we don't act on them, that's it. It's going to be finished. This kind of enthusiasm will get, you know, kind of thinner and thinner, and then it's disappeared. And then it's going to be, oh yeah, I remember that thing about gender-based violence, I think it was called. And we don't want that. If we're doing something, what kind of work are we doing? Really, what impact are we putting in the country? And how are we changing people's lives? One concrete thing I can tell you, I'm so happy to invite you as soon as COVID's finished and the lockdown's gone. COVID won't be finished now, by the way, but as soon as the lockdown is gone, what I would like to do is invite you to our shelter in Saint-Pierre to come and we have a good discussion over a good Mauritian tea, and then we talk about what, maybe sign an MOU and see how we can get concrete work happening. Gender links with yourself, plus other organizations maybe, and the residents of Safe Haven. Let's really hear them, because it's too easy trying to change the face of violence without including people who's known that violence. We need to include them.
Definitely. Well, I've seen it, I've witnessed it, and I've seen from a very close view.
Exactly.
I've always thought that, well, I'm speaking for my case, it's just a thing that I would like to share. You always think that you are going through something really hard. I mean, when you are going through that situation, it's something that you say, okay, I'm going through such a hard time. It's something, I will use Creole here, but when you go out, when I went out and saw things that are much more worse than I've witnessed, I've gone through, it changes my vision completely. It's only when you go, you talk to those people, you see those people, and then you really understand, okay, Bear, I've been lucky enough to come out of it. And then you realize there is much more at the back of it. It's not only the face value of the thing, it's much deeper than we can imagine.
Exactly. No, this is a really good testimony, what you're giving us, Jaya, and thank you very much for that. And it's very important for you to understand something. We might all think we have solutions for gender-based violence. Let's get together, let's talk. Maybe there's a few little bits and bits that you can actually do to bring an improvement. I'm actually working with the perpetrators. I've had people coming to my door and telling me they want to kill me because I've empowered their woman. And they came in and said, okay, let's just have a cup of tea before You decide to kill me because right now I'm very tired. You know, let's go into after discussion with those violent people and telling them, and they come and tell me, you know, I really love my wife, but why are you giving her training to work, to be empowered? And then I said, if you really love her, why do you beat her up so badly? Why don't you have respect for her? But I thought it was like that, and a lot to do, and it's a case-to-case basis. There is no one-size-fits-all, unfortunately, and this is where dealing with GBV is hard, because it's not a one-size-fits-all.
So thank you a lot. I would just like to add a small thing that I would like to share with each and every one of the participants over here. You know, there are things that people go on a daily basis. Violence is not something that happens only in low-income people like we think, but it happens at every sphere of society. So what I would like to request you, and it's something very simple, it's talk. If you see la moindre petite thing that you see, something abnormal, talk to that person, because during those times, it's the one thing that people really need is a soothing ear. No comments, no judgment, just talk to that person. Can I help you? What can I do for you to feel better? I think that makes the whole difference. On this note, thank everyone who have Deputy National President, our past presidents of JCI City Plus who are here. It really means a lot to have you here, our aspiring members and everyone. Thank you for having made this session a good one. And my greatest vote of thanks goes to you, Anushka. I know I've seen you in action, I've seen how you work. It really means a lot. So I would leave the floor to Yan now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jaya, for your input. I think we've really heard some really interesting things what you've been discussing with Anushka. And as we close up, I'd like to say a big thank you for Anushka for being here and giving some time on her Saturday afternoon. I will definitely take you up on your words and get back to you after this webinar on maybe future actions we can do together. So on this note, I'd like to close this session and wish you all a great Saturday afternoon and weekend. Thank you.
Excellent. And thank you very much, everybody, for this amazing initiative. Bye-bye.